Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome. I am Eli Abu Zaid. I'm a project manager with Balai Alliance, and we are happy to welcome and introduce your speaker for today's session, Become the Elevated Leader, by Jenny West Correa.
Let's bring this down a little bit to my height. It's funny, I asked, do I need the mic? Because I'm normally really loud, but I guess I need it because they're filming. So if I'm too loud, I apologize, and I'll try and tone it down. Thank you, Eli. It's so amazing that Eli was the one that introduced me, because I actually interviewed Eli way back when he was a student, and so we have a little bit of a history there. So that was really nice to be introduced and welcomed by him, so thank you. I just want to point out that some of the lovely ladies in this room I saw earlier this morning at the BOMA conference where I spoke this morning, so I'm happy to see you guys are here, and hopefully you're not too sick of me by now. To those of you that are joining, thank you for attending. I feel really honored and privileged to be speaking at the OCA Symposium. I've been coming to this for as long as it's been in existence, I think. I've been coming many years, mostly just kind of wandering the trade floor, sitting at a booth. My career and life has been steeped in the construction industry, and I've been doing a lot of work in this field. And so I'm excited to be here with you today, not sitting there listening to somebody, but actually speaking to all of you. So that's very exciting. My name is Jenny West Correa, and I come to you today as an independent consultant with a group called Stratford Group. We're a leadership development and business consulting firm that provides services to various organizations. I also run my own business, West Reach Development, and I am a leadership development trainer, executive coach, and leadership coach, primarily for the construction sector. So I do work with other industries. I do have clients that are not construction, but my favorite ones are construction, obviously, right? And so the bulk of my business has been in this field. And so I bring to you today just kind of a topic on elevating our leadership. And I'm going to start with this. I always joke and say I'm not in the business of remedial leadership training. So I'm not in the business of working with leaders who are awful and suck, and we have to fix them and make them better. I'm in the business of working with good leaders, great leaders even, and elevating the leader that they are so that they can be even better and bring more to their teams, more to their projects. Right? So I'm going to start with this question. I want you to just kind of do a little bit of a self-assessment. And I'm going to use a really advanced, fancy scale, 1 to 10. 1, I suck. I'm awful. I'm horrible. 10, I'm amazing. I'm perfect. I am like exceptional. On a scale of 1 to 10, where would you rate your leadership? The leader that you are. So just think about that number right now. 1, I suck. I'm awful. I'm horrible, Jenny. I don't even know how I'm in this role. 10, I'm amazing. I'm perfect. Step aside. I could teach this. Don't be shy. Any 10s? 10 out of 10. Perfect leaders. Come on, don't be shy. Anybody perfect? Look around. Nobody's hands up. And what does that tell us? Just shout it out. What does that tell us? Nobody's perfect, there's room for improvement, there's room to grow. Now, whatever number you self-assessed, I'm a 4 on a good day of 5, I'm a solid 7, right? Whatever number you gave yourself, the goal for today, for the 44 minutes that we have left together, is how do I move it up 1 notch? To me, that's elevating your leadership. So if you're sitting here today saying I'm a 4, if you're sitting here saying I'm an 8, what do you do with the information that you've gathered today to just move it up 1 notch? Because that means I'm willing to grow, I'm willing to develop, I want to elevate my leadership. Right? The other thing that I want to talk about around this topic around elevated leadership is, just by a show of hands, how many of you believe that if you're a manager, a supervisor, you work for a company, and on the company's org chart, your name is there, and then there's a list of other names under you, meaning you're responsible for those people. How many of you would say if you're a manager or a supervisor responsible for direct reports, you are automatically a leader? How many would say that's true? Okay. On the flip side, if you're an individual contributor for an organization, so you're on the org chart all by your lonesome, there's no names underneath you, you're not responsible to supervise or manage anyone, could you be a leader? Yes. And what does that tell us? What does that tell us? That just the title, supervisor or manager, doesn't automatically make me a leader, and I don't even have to have that title, and I could be a leader. What does that say? Shout it out. I'm a very interactive person, by the way. You're going to get this. Everybody's important. Anybody can be a leader. And if anybody can be a leader and it's not a link to your title per se, as an automatic given, what does that suggest to become a leader? Right. It's a mindset, right? It's a belief. It's what's in here, right? How many of you have worked with that apprentice or that young student, or you've seen your child and you went, holy am I allowed to swear? I don't know. Holy beep. Like, that's a leader, right? And that's because it's not tied to that title. And so it's not tied to your title, whatever your title is right now. How many are supervising people? You're a manager, supervisor, you have direct reports. Okay, put your hands down. How many aren't? How many don't have one single direct report? Right, but we're all leaders. And we all should be leaders, right? In our positions, in our tasks, in our placement in life. How many parents? You're leaders, right? How many sisters, children, brothers, right? Like, we're leaders in our families, right? So this is this mindset that I want us to think about as we explore what it means to elevate our leadership. So I'm going to bring to you, and the bulk of my work is in this space, and I develop month-long programs around these topics, and I've narrowed it down to 40 minutes and 4 topics, right? So this is kind of the high-level version of it. But I think these 4 are really significant in elevating your leadership. And when I work with my clients, either in training or as their coach, doing individual coaching with leaders, we talk a lot about what's your mindset around what your role is, why it exists, why you show up as a quote-unquote leader, right? And that really starts to tell us, if I had to define it, what's the purpose, right? The second piece that I think is most important is how self-aware are you? Right? And if we think about exceptional leaders that we've been exposed to and that we've had the privilege of being acquainted with or working for, I know when I think of mine, I think they know who they are. They know what their strengths are. They know what their weaknesses are. They're pretty self-aware. But this is a skill set that doesn't come natural to all of us, and it doesn't come automatic. Like, we have to work at it. We have to put time into uncovering what that self-awareness is. The third one that I think makes a great leader stand out from a good leader is that leader's ability to adapt, to collect information about the situation, about people, and actually be agile and flexible and adapt to their leadership style, their communication, their approach to get the best and most out of other people or out of the situation or the circumstance. And then finally, the fourth one, and this is the one where most people in my training will leave saying, oh, that's my takeaway, that's what I'm going to use, is how good a job are we doing connecting people to purpose? I like to say, how good a job are you doing at making it really obvious how what that person's doing is connected to the bigger why? So these are the 4 that I wanted to explore with you. So when we look at leadership mindset, I want you to think about your role as a leader, whether you're a supervisor or managing a team of people or just one individual, or you're a parent or you're an individual contributor, but you oversee and you work really closely with another trade, right? We show up as leaders all the time in all facets of our work. Ask yourself, what's the purpose of my role? What's the purpose of my job? What's the goal in this exchange with this individual? If I flash forward to the end of this conversation or the end of this week or the end of this project, what does success look like? Right? And this starts forcing us to ask the question, who is this really for? Right? There's this movement out there. I didn't create it. It's not new. You can Google this after. But has anybody heard or are familiar with servant leadership? Has anybody heard of that? Yeah. And this concept about servant leadership is, I'm your boss, but you don't work for me. I'm your boss, I'm the leader, but I work for you, right? And it's this mind shift, this mindset about what is the end game? If you are overseeing a group of people, what's the end game with that group of people? Is it to make sure they comply and do everything you say they need to do? Is it that they thrive and are successful in their individual roles on your project or your team or your department or your company? right? Because just the answer to either of those two questions really starts to shift our mindset in how I want to show up as a leader with those people, right? Parents in the room, if you do this about your kids, right? I'm the dad, you do what I say. I'm the mom, I'm in charge, right? That's one way, right? If the goal is to think about what's my role as that child's parent, what is the role of the parent? Raise them right. My husband and I always say, create a great human, right? It's not tied to make sure they're a doctor, make sure this, that, just create a great person, right? And so we think about what's the purpose of our roles? What's the goal of our role? What does success look like if we do it well? And it's easy to go, and this is why I always use parenting examples, because it's easy to go there when we think about a child. Take that same mentality into your workplace and think about it with your teams, with your direct reports, right? What is that goal? What's my mindset around leadership? And so the easiest way for me to kind of put this in there so it hopefully ingrains in is ask yourself, how am I creating conditions for success? Okay? And this it doesn't matter if you're a boss or a supervisor or if you're an individual contributor. Just ask yourself, when I go to work, how am I creating conditions for success for my team, my boss? This is leading up, by the way. That's a whole different workshop, whole nother topic, right? How do we lead up? How am I creating conditions of success for my organization, for my department, for my colleague who's right next to me, who both of our jobs kind of interact with each other? And asking ourselves that question starts to shift our mindset about what the purpose or the goal is of why I'm there and what I'm doing, right? So that mentality around creating those conditions of success has to force you to think about what's the end game. In construction, why does your job exist? What's the point? What's the purpose? What are you trying to achieve at the end? Don't be shy. Let's just shout these out. Build the building. What else? Let's get, more real here. Make some money. What else? Meet our schedule. Build something of quality so that we get repeat business. Make sure everybody goes home with all their limbs intact and alive and safe, right? Like, these are like the 4 pillars of construction goals, right? Budget, schedule, quality, safety, right? So if that's the end game, and you're like, yeah, but Jenny, those are big asks, tough job, right? Like, I don't have time creating conditions of success for everyone else. I gotta get stuff done so we make our money and we meet our schedule. But if we have the mindset that, what am I doing? How am I showing up so that I can make sure that everyone on my team is successful? Because if they're successful and they're thriving, what's happening? We're making money. We're meeting our schedule. We're taking pride in our work, and so the quality's there. And look, oh wow, we're reaping all this extra business and this great reputation in the industry about our organization. And everybody's safe and happy, right? But that starts with the leader's mindset. Right? And we know it doesn't happen automatic. It's not magic, right? It takes work. And it takes the work, and I think, of the leader. So I want you to think right now. This is a moment for you to go down, This is an opportunity for you to go down memory lane here. I want you to just kind of think about an amazing leader you've had. Okay? Hopefully you've had or been exposed to someone in your life. This could be a past boss, this could be your current boss, this might not even have been a boss. This could have been a hockey coach you had, a soccer coach, a piano teacher, high school teacher, your dad, your grandpa, your great aunt. Right? I just want you to think about somebody that has been in your life that has impacted you in a positive way, and get that person in your head right now. Okay, just put them in there. And ask yourself, why am I thinking of this person? What did they do that stood out, that's making me conjure them up right now? What did they do that's different than all the rest of the leaders that I've had and the bosses I've been exposed to and the other people that aren't jumping in my head right now? Right? What's making them different? Right? Well, I love doing this exercise with my groups because it forces me to think about some amazing people that have been in my life. And one leader was my boss, jumps in my mind every single time. And I've got a few quotes or a few qualities up on the slide here. You're thinking of your own why that person, right? And when I think of the person who stood out as a really exceptional leader for me, the words that come to mind was he trusted me. Right? He advocated for me. He wanted me to be successful, and he told people about me so that I could be successful. He admitted when he was wrong. He asked for my opinion. Right? So think about your person, and what are some of those traits or qualities? What did they do that made you feel different? That created that impact, that positive impact for you? Anybody willing to shout out a quality or trait? You don't have to tell us who the person is, but what did they do? Yeah. They provided you with some recognition. They gave you great support. Good training. They trained you. Yes. They were available. They were there. Right? What else? They were honest. Any others? Yeah. You felt equal to them. Yeah, same with mine. I didn't feel like there was that, although I respected, but there was this sense of kind of equality, like I mattered at a same level. Anybody else? Accountability. They held you accountable, or you could account on them? Both? Right. Yeah. Right. So think about your person. Now I want you to do this. Okay. Imagine that for a minute, and don't do this for real, but imagine I asked you all to leave, to just go out. I'll call you back in about 5 minutes. Don't do it for real, but just say I said that, right? And you guys all funnel out this door. And then in this door comes everybody that works with you. All your direct reports, your teams, your colleagues, that trade that you work with every single day, they all funnel in through this side door. They sit down. I ask them to do the same thing. Think of that person in your life. Could be your boss, your supervisor, your hockey coach, your grandpa, and I ask them to do the same thing. Now think of why. Why are you thinking of that person? What traits and qualities are coming to mind? Ask yourself this: are they thinking of me? Is your person thinking of you? Are you that person, that leader that's had that impact for them? If you're thinking, you know what, I might be that person. What traits and qualities are they shouting out about you? If you're sitting here going, heck no, Jenny, they are not thinking of me right now. I know that for a fact. On that scale you did, I was a 2. Right? So then ask yourself this next question. Is it important for you, and not from a selfish ego standpoint to be the person that guy thought of, but to actually create an experience for someone else similar to what was created for you by that person you're thinking of right now? Right? And then we go back to the slide about create conditions for success. Because if you have that mindset that you want to be that leader, that you want to create that experience for somebody else, you show up different. So when you think about the traits and qualities that were just shouted out in the room, and then you think of the ones that you conjured up about your leader, I want you to kind of identify one of them that you think is your opportunity to focus on, to get better at, to be more consistent in, to strive for. I'm a big believer when I know this is like a talk, right? It's not really a training session, but I'm a big believer you should leave here with something, right? So maybe that's your thing you leave with, right? Wow, I thought about my person. He was so patient with me. Shit, I'm not patient at all. Maybe that's my area of opportunity to elevate the leader I am today to be better tomorrow, right? So, somebody told me once when I did a similar exercise like this around thinking about that leader. I don't know why this keeps advancing on me. They said this was really cool because I hadn't talked to that person in like 20-something years. And after your session, I went and reached out. And now we have coffee once a month. Right? So maybe that's your opportunity. This morning I talked about foster connections, right? Good leaders have a good network, right? So if you're thinking about somebody you haven't talked to in a while and they're still here around, they haven't passed away. Some people think about people who are gone, right? And they're still here and you haven't talked to them or connected with them, or you see them every day, but they don't know that they're the person you thought of today. I don't know. That might be something neat to share back with them. So when I think of my leader, and some of you said things like this around they were honest, I talked about trust. To me, when I think about what's at the foundation of elevated leadership, of exceptional leaders, and I could have flipped this exercise, right? I could have gone dark and said, think of that leader that you had that was awful, right? I'm sure everyone's had one at some point in their life, right? Horrible, awful, made you feel like crap, right? And then I asked, well, what did they do and how did they make you feel? And we'd have a whole bunch of different words coming out. Right? And most times when I hear people talk about those types of leaders, the number one thing they say is there was no trust. Right? I didn't trust him or her, she didn't trust me, and the trust wasn't there. And to me, trust is the foundation of leadership, exceptional leadership. Right? Anybody had a leader that they didn't really trust? I have. Right? How many of you know if the people that you lead trust you? Do you trust them as their leader? Right? Because trust is two ways, right? And so I always use this analogy, especially it works well in construction, right? About a house, right? If we build a house or we build a building, what's the first thing we have to do? We got to pour something. The foundation, right? If we build our house without the foundation, we put up fancy walls, we put in the most expensive windows, we put on a really nice roof, we paint it this awesome color, over time, what happens to our building or our structure? It falls, right? So I always say good leaders who, yeah, they delegate, they give feedback, they do all this, but no trust is there, foundation isn't poured. It doesn't really matter all that stuff that you're doing. Those are your fancy windows and your nice paint job and your drywall and all that stuff. But if the trust isn't there, then that feedback you received doesn't land, or you don't believe it, or you dismiss it, right? That delegation or that bit of recognition that we get, it doesn't come across as authentic or genuine. We don't trust it. See what I mean? So that foundational piece is building that trust. So how do we do that? I teach like a day-long workshop on this, so here it is in one slide, right? The first thing we have to do is be consistent. And to me, that means you do what you say you will do, right? And we're busy, right? So sometimes we say to our employee, yeah, I'm going to do that review with you at 3 o'clock this afternoon. And then 3 o'clock comes and your person shows up and you're not there because you got stuck in a meeting, right? And then you apologize, I'm so sorry, we'll do it tomorrow, right? But that's you being inconsistent, right? Now things happen, communicate, that helps with keeping the trust, right? Perfect example, if anybody wants to break trust with someone, I don't know if anybody out there really wants to like damage trust with an individual right now or like really tear it down, be inconsistent with them. It'll happen like this, right? So, you know, for example, if your buddy says to you, hey, would you like to have a drink after work? And you're like, yeah, sure, what time do you want to meet? 5 o'clock, let's meet over here. Okay, great, I'll meet you at 5. You show up at 5, 5:05, 5:10, 5:15, your buddy shows up, you have your drink, off you go. Week later, your buddy says to you, drinks again after work? Yeah, sure, same place, same time? Perfect, I'll see you there. You show up at 5, 5:10, 5:15, 5:20, 5:30, your buddy shows, you have your drink, off you go. Third week, your buddy says to you, drinks after work? And you're like, yeah, okay. 5 o'clock, same place? And you're like, yeah, sure. What time are you showing up? Why? Because you know your buddy's not going to be there at 5, right? You don't trust that he'll be there at 5. He's still your friend. Like, I'm not saying the trust on a deep level is broken, but you don't trust that he'll be there. So he's actually been consistently inconsistent that you now trust he'll be late. Eh? I love that example because it proves it on both points, right? So this idea about consistency, transparency, and vulnerability as leaders, right? That takes confidence to be transparent, to be vulnerable. My leader, the awesome one that I keep thinking of, always admitted when he was wrong. Came to me and said, I made a mistake. I remember he said to me one time, came in my office, closed the door, he goes, I screwed up. I made this decision and I shouldn't have. My boss said that. But the trust was there that he could do that with me. And the trust was there that I would still respect him. Actually, I respected him more because he admitted the mistake instead of trying to cover it up or blame it on someone else, right? So this idea around how transparent and vulnerable am I being? And I'm not saying leaders are able to tell everything and all. Sometimes we can't. We're not at liberty to, but can we be transparent with what we can? And when we can't, can we at least communicate? I don't have all the information yet, or I have some of the information, but I'm not at liberty to share that yet, but as soon as I can, I'll let you know. Like, those are ways that we can build that trust around those pieces. This idea around being empathetic and backing up our people. Right? I mean, construction's a tough business, right? One client told me, there's no room for feelings in construction, Jenny. There has to be. There has to be, because we're employing humans, not robots, right? We're making room and space and careers for people. And so there has to be empathy. Empathy isn't letting anybody do whatever they want. Empathy isn't breaking all the rules and providing like boatloads of accommodation. Empathy is about listening. Empathy is about talking, collecting information, providing support where you can. Okay? Asking for feedback, we'll talk about that in a minute and a little deeper. But here's the big one, and it's at the bottom because I saved the best for last. You have to trust first. Okay? So some leaders sit there and think, no, I don't trust any single one of these people. They got to earn it and prove it. You'll be waiting. Leaders have to trust first. Sometimes the trust's going to get broken. Sometimes it's going to get damaged. And you're going to have to go into repair mode. But I always say it's the leader's responsibility. It's the leader's privilege to do these things first. All these things. One, if you're a supervisor or a manager, you're paid more. So there is automatically more responsibility on you. But if you're not in that position, but you want to show up as a leader in your field, for your industry, for your company, for your role, for your tasks, you go first. Don't wait. Exceptional, elevated leaders don't sit around and wait. They're not reactionary and reactive. They're strategic. They're forward-focused. They push. The second piece that I want to talk about a bit is around self-awareness. And I think this is a big differentiator that separates a good leader from a great leader. Okay? And if you just read the quote on the screen, one of the most important of all personal leadership skills is self-awareness. How many of you agree with that or believe that to be true or link with that? Yeah. Has anybody worked with a leader where you would say they were not self-aware? They did not know what they were good at, or what they thought they were good at was actually what they were really crappy at. Like, have you ever worked with that person? Right. And so this idea around self-awareness is integral in being successful as a leader. Okay? Because it isn't until we can tap into really paying attention to and understanding where our strengths are, what we're good at, and where our weaknesses are, or our areas of opportunity, to one, do this thing that we're calling right now evolving or growing. But most importantly, it gives us insights into how we're showing up for our people. It gives us insight into how our people are succeeding. I always dare my clients to do this, and I'm going to dare you to do it now. And I know you don't know if you have pens or paper, but you can type it in your phone, or you can just remember it for later. But I dare you, when things go wrong, you can do this when things go right too, but it's more fun to do it when things go wrong. When things go wrong, when things aren't going great, this can be at work, this could be at home with your kids, okay? I dare you to just take a couple minutes to ask yourself this question. How did I contribute to this? That's a scary question, right? That's big. So when you're fighting with your teenager, and they're giving you lip, and they're just acting out, and you're there ready to discipline and do what you need to do, just pause for a second and ask yourself, hang on a second, how did I contribute to this? And let's see what comes to you. It might be absolutely nothing, I'm the best parent in the world, this kid sucks, right? And then you proceed. Go ahead, but at least you thought about it. Most times, something will jump into your head around, you know what, I lost my temper really quick. I didn't give the kid a chance to say what they said. I interrupted. You know what, I just assumed they would know not to be an idiot and do that. That's my bad, I made an assumption. Right? I wasn't clear. It's the same with our people, with our teams at work. Right? If you've got to give your employees some really tough, constructive feedback before you call them in to give them that feedback, I dare you, just pause for a second and ask yourself, how did I contribute to this? Maybe your expectations weren't clear enough. Maybe you made assumptions. It's not so that they skirt all the responsibility and you take it on. It's an effort to deepen your self-awareness about how you're showing up as a leader for that person, as a parent for that child. Right? So ask yourself, how self-aware am I? Right? This isn't something, especially I find in our industry, most of my clients, 90% of them are male field leaders, superintendents, foremen. It seems to be the clientele that I work the most with. And I would say they're not overly self-analytical. They're not spending a lot of time thinking about, how did I run that meeting? What would I do different? They're not doing that. They're definitely not writing in a meditative journal at night before they go to bed, right? Some might, but most of mine aren't, right? So this doesn't take tons of time. This just takes a few small daily practices to get into this mindset about how self-aware we are. So some of the little tips that I want to leave you with is, how good a job are you doing at asking for feedback? Because sometimes our self-awareness starts to get built by the feedback we collect from other people around us. Don't just collect it all from the people you know are going to tell you good things about you. Seek out feedback from people you know might not give you what you want to hear. Seek it from your boss in your reviews. That's a natural one. We get that from our superiors, right? But how many of you are asking for feedback from your direct reports? Asking them what's working, what's not working. Here's a tip, Okay? If you ask your direct report, how am I doing as your boss? Right? Depending on the trust, now we go back to the trust slide, many of them are just going to say what they think you want to hear, or to protect their jobs. You're doing great, boss. You're awesome. Best one I've ever had. Thought of you in Jenny's session. Right? If the trust isn't there, then we might have to change the way we ask the question. Right? So these could be things like, what do you like the best about your job? What pisses you off the most about what you're doing? What frustrates you? Now you might be thinking, how's that about me? Like, how's that going to help me with my leadership and my self-awareness? But if I get my direct report to start telling me what frustrates him, what annoys him, what he loses sleep over, what he's excited about, what he loves the best about his job, is that giving me insight as his leader? Yeah. Or what he needs from you, right? Where there might be gaps. Right? So sometimes we can be pretty clever in how we solicit some of this feedback for ourselves if we don't have that relationship yet built. I'll tell you right now, the boss that I'm thinking of, that I did earlier, that I thought of earlier, he'd come in and ask for feedback, and I'd just tell him, you were an asshole in the meeting today. And he's like, I was? I was like, yep. Why? What did I do? But our trust was there, that I could say that, and it wasn't a sign of disrespect. I wasn't even worried about sharing it, because he genuinely wanted to know. So that's my second point. If you're going to ask for feedback, you have to stay open and receptive to what the person gives you. Okay? And here's my other tip about receiving feedback. When it's solicited, you can go in with the mindset of, okay, I'm going to ask for this, let's see what comes, and I'm going to do this. When feedback comes to you unsolicited, so you didn't ask for it, it was just gifted to you, okay? Something that catches us off guard, right? And you're human, just like me, right? So sometimes when the feedback comes and it's not so great, what happens to us automatically? We get defensive, right? We get defensive and reactionary, or we want to justify our actions or explain, right? And as soon as we do that, yeah, but, oh, I know, but I was, as soon as we do that, we shut down access to information. And here's what I believe about elevated leaders. Elevated leaders see information as power. The more information you have, the more strategic you can be, the more insightful you can be, the more purposeful you can be. Okay? So if I shut down access to information, I start justifying myself, I defend myself, then I shut down that conduit of finding out more feedback. Because even if it's not true, even if it's wrong, there's a perception. So I want to know what that is. I want access to that information. So if you ask for feedback, stay open to receiving it. Pay attention. So stay observant. Watch people, right? Watch your team, right? Our body language. People who know me from my PCL days knows I taught a workshop like 1 billion times a year on presentation skills. And I always say that we will always believe what we see over what we hear every single time. Our body language speaks louder than our words. You assign work to that new student. You give him his task and you say, okay, you got it? You feel good? Yes, boss, I'm good. I got it. I'm gonna nail it. I got it. I'm ready. His words say he's ready, he's got it, no problem, I'm gonna nail it. But do you believe him? No, right? Because his body language is indicating a nervousness or an uncomfortableness or lack of confidence, right? So we have to stay observant and then proceed with our observations to collect more information. Okay, you seem a bit nervous, what are you not sure about? What can I make clearer? Better yet, what's your plan? Ask him what his plan is, right? Because then you're going to know if he's ready, right? So this idea about that. The redo game is something that can work quite effectively in terms of deepening your self-awareness. And this is a little bit different from the how did I contribute to this question. But this is, you're leaving your meeting. You're leaving your meeting, you get in your truck, you're driving to your job site, you're driving home, wherever you're going. I don't know why this is doing this. And you ask yourself, if I could hit rewind and do that again, what would I do the same? And is there anything I would change? That's the redo game. That's it. That's how simple it is, right? You don't need a pad of paper. You don't need a book. This is just you stopping and thinking about how did that go? You give feedback to your guy. He storms out mad. You ask yourself, what would I do the same? What would I do different, right? You talk to your kid. You talk to your spouse. You talk to your partner. It doesn't go great. Or it goes awesome. You can do this when things go great too, right? What worked there? Why did that go so well? I need to remember that for next time, right? And that's that building your self-awareness. This makes you a better leader, okay? And then all of this stuff, whether it's something you've observed, feedback you've collected, you've done the redo game and you have an idea, hey, if I had to do this again, I would do it like this. I always say to separate yourself from the average leader, stop leading by assumption. Start validating information. Start validating your thoughts. Start validating what you think someone is. If you catch yourself saying, I think he got it, I hope it goes this way, you're leading by assumption. Think and hope has to be gone and replaced with, I know he understood this. I'm confident that it's going to go this way. That's the difference, right? And many times when I'm coaching clients and I'll ask them something, they'll go, I think it's this. It's like, how do we change think to know? And that then springboards us into some action. Okay? So those are some of my tips on just kind of becoming a bit more self-aware. And I think, if I just look around this room and I had like 10 minutes with everyone to do like a power coaching session, we would all be at various levels of self-awareness. We would, right? And some of us might be hyper self-aware around certain things and not self-aware in other areas, right? So just, I guess the takeaway from that one is to ask yourself, how well do I know me in my leadership role? Do I know, if I had to ask, if Jenny called up my direct reports or the people that I work closest with and asked them what makes them so successful, what are they good at, where are their gaps and their weaknesses, what do I think they would say to her? You can go that route first. What would your people tell me about you? Right? And then validate it. Is it accurate? Is it right? Okay? Asking someone who's super close to you to validate, that knows you, your spouse, your partner, your boss, your colleague, the person that sits in the cubicle beside you for the last 20 years, right? That's probably close to accurate because they see you day in, day out, right? So how many of you remember the golden rule? You might have learned it in church. Your grandma might have it embroidered on a pillow sitting on her couch right now, right? It's a nice rule, right? Treat others the way you would like to be treated. Sounds nice, right? Sounds like I want that on my wall, right? But in leadership, I say no. Because what this suggests in leadership is lead others the way you like to be led. Okay? And I think elevated leaders start moving past what they need and start adopting this mindset of creating conditions for success. And if I've got Fred and Sally on my team, and I apologize if there's Freds and Sallys in the room, but those are my fake people I use all the time. They're not real. But if I've got Fred and Sally on my team and I'm leading Fred and Sally, are they exactly the same? No. Are they clones of each other? Better yet, are they the same as me? No. So if I go in and I say, well, I like to be led like this, I really like this, I like to be communicated this way, this is what motivates me, and I go in and I apply that same golden rule to Fred and Sally, if Fred is kind of like me, it might work, but if Sally's the complete opposite, I'm going to miss the mark as her leader every single time. So elevated leaders don't follow the golden rule, they follow what I call the platinum rule, which is treat and lead others the way they need to be led. So if I learn a bit about the people on my team, if I pay attention to Fred and I find out what motivates him, I observe him, I ask him questions, I solicit feedback from him, and then I do the same with Sally and whoever else is on my team. I start gathering all this valuable information that I now then can use to create those conditions of success for those people. And so now I start to become agile and adaptive as their leader. And so what motivates Fred might actually be a demotivator for Sally. So I'm not going to use the same strategy for both people. That would, in my opinion, make me an ineffective leader. Right? Fred really responds when I just tell him what to do, give him the task, and off he goes. He's goal-driven, he's action-oriented. It actually pisses him off when I stop and ask him how his weekend was. He just wants to go and he wants me to give him the task for the day. But if I use that same, and that works for me because I'm the same. But then when I try that with Sally, she kind of drags her feet and she starts asking me about my dog and I'm like, come on, we got to get going, right? But I start to pay attention and realize Sally's puts more importance on relationships and connections. And so maybe I just ask Sally about her weekend first, get that need met, and then provide her with the instruction. Holy cow, when I do that, Sally's off to the races, right? And this is the idea around being agile and adaptive, okay? Great leaders don't stick to one recipe for all, right? They look at all their ingredients and figure out how to use them to make the best dish, right? And so this requires what I call the ability of an elevated leader to speed read people because we're busy. And if we supervise and manage and lead big teams, and when I say big, I mean more than 5. Because to really get to know more than 5 people and do your job, good luck, okay? If you're leading and overseeing like groups like 10 people, 12 people, like that's another issue in the organization about like layering leadership because no one person can effectively lead that many people, okay? Could you lead 1 or 2 people who then lead, you know, a bunch of people on your team? Yes, because then you really just kind of focus in on those 2 main people. But if you ask yourself, how well do I know the people that I lead? So supervisors and managers in the room right now, just put one name in your head of somebody on your team. If you don't lead anyone as a supervisor, think about somebody that you work with very closely. A trade, somebody from another stakeholder group, your colleague, your boss, doesn't matter. Just put them in your head. How well do I know this person? And I'm not talking about what they like to eat and, you know, how big their family is and what car they drive. I'm talking about, do you know what their goals are? Do you know what motivates them? What frustrates them? What gets them excited at work? What their definition of success is? Right? That might be what you take away from today, is that one person. And if you're going, I think his goal is this, you're leading by assumption. So validate that thought. Find out. Right? Ask those questions. Okay? How do they respond to different communication styles? I have one leader who was in one of my sessions, and we were talking about effective communication. And he said, what's effective on my site is when I scream and yell, people get their asses in gear and we get stuff done. Okay? And I said, okay, how well do you know your team? I've worked with these guys 10 years. It's my same crew. I take them to all my sites with me. And that's how it works. If I try and do this, like, how do you feel and all this crap, they're going to laugh at me and we're going to get nothing done. I said, great, so then your leadership's working for your team. Right? Like, if that's working and they respond to that, there's no recommendation that you have to change that approach if that's working. But how do you know it's working? You have to pay attention. You have to ask. You have to validate. You see it in their production. That's really how you know, right? Is in their production. When we put people in a situation, the same situation, they will all act differently. So this is an important tip for leaders to pay attention to, right? I'll use an example. Let's say we're all stuck in an elevator right now. Terrifying, right? Big elevator, we're all stuck in it. The elevator's not moving. What are some of us doing in that elevator? Freaking out, panicking. What are others doing? Trying to fix it, trying to solve it. They're on that little phone, trying to call down to the maintenance people. What are other people doing? What's that? Calming down the other people, reassuring people it's going to be okay. What are other people doing? Holy shit, time to do my Wordle. I got some free time here. I'm on my phone, checking on my social media, right? Like someone will fix it. I don't need to do anything, right? So same situation, but because we're not robots, we're all going to act different, right? Safety meeting. You're running a safety meeting. You're sitting in a safety meeting. Same scenario, same situation. What are some people doing in the safety meeting? Talking to somebody else. What's the other people doing? Paying attention, totally locked in. What are other people doing? Scrolling on their phone. What are other people doing? Complaining, right? Like, so same scenario, but people act different. So as the leader, we have to be aware of how people are reacting. That's another conduit of information. Information's power. Right? That's how we gather our information to figure out, how do I need to respond? How do I need to communicate? The number one thing that's going to move you and shift you in your leadership is intention. Okay? Being intentional in how you show up as a leader, not just having it happen by accident. Okay? The last one that I want to share, and this is one of the most impactful ones, is How good a job are you doing at inspiring what I call a shared purpose or connecting people to the bigger why? Right? And to just kind of land this one home, I'm going to share a little story with you. So if you think about a construction site, what would be the least desirable job on a construction crew or a construction site? The job no one really wants. Cleaning the washrooms. There's another one. Tower crane operator, okay. Some would want that one, but okay. How about the flagger or the rodman? Or the guy that flips the sign to control the traffic, right? So I'll tell you a quick story. I had someone in my family years ago, this is like 20 years ago, who came out of high school and said to me, I really want to get into construction. I was like, yes, and this was a female too, by the way. I was like, yes, amazing, like we need you, you gotta get in here. But I don't know what to do, where to start. I don't know if I wanna trade, carpentry, like I'm not sure what I'm gonna do. And I said, well, let's get you in to a construction site so you can just kind of experience the environment. So I helped get her a summer job as the rodman, okay? Because that's what we give, you know, the new people on the construction site. So week one, she's like, I love it, the best job ever. Like I'm outside all day, I'm getting a tan, everybody's so nice. Some little kid waved to me from the back seat, loved it, okay? Week two, a little bit more lackluster, right? Like, it's all right, it's kind of boring, it's like the same thing. Some guy gave me the bird when I was like, right? So she was, not so excited, right? By the third week, she wanted to quit. And it wasn't because of the people driving, it wasn't because of the weather. It was because she said, it's the worst job on my crew. Nobody talks to me. I don't even know why I have to do this. It's awful, I hate it. And I said, you stick this out for the rest of the summer. I got you this job, you do it, right? So she did it. And then she enrolled in business admin. Not construction, okay? Just turned her right off. Now I'm gonna ask you this, and we're all in construction, we might not all be on job sites, and we may never have had the role of the flagger, but I think we're pretty smart people here. How important is the role of the rodman? How come? What are they doing? Why is it important? Protecting the workers? What else are they doing? Protecting the public, preventing accidents. They're doing something else. Remember our 4 pillars, make money, meet schedule, what else are they doing? Safety, making sure people are safe. Right, like making sure that the resources are getting on site and I'm stopping the traffic so the trucks can get in and deliver what they need to deliver. What if I told you that the job she was on was an existing hospital, we were renovating the Heart Institute, and it was a functioning hospital. Now, how important is her role? Right, like to make sure doctors are getting in to perform surgeries, people are coming in to see family members, patients are getting to their appointments, okay? At 19 years old, 20 years old, she didn't make that connection, okay? Now, I don't have a magic wand. I can't go back in time and say if I sat down her foreman or her lead hand and I said, like, how are you connecting her job to purpose? How are you making sure she knows how important this job is? Would she have stayed? Would she have embarked into the construction? I don't know. 20 years later, she's now in construction after a 20-year career in business admin, right? I asked her recently, because I told her, I said, I tell this story all the time about you. I don't use your name, but I tell it all the time. And I said, if your supervisor made it crystal clear how integral and important your job was, do you think that would have changed anything? And she said, I don't know, but it couldn't have hurt, right? So I want you to think about this right now. If you're assigning work to people, okay, first of all, are you assigning anything that is pointless? Actually, they don't even need to do that. I don't know why I assign it to them, but it's for shits and giggles, let's just make them do this. No, right? We don't do that. That's ineffective, right? I mean, everything that happens, the guy who cleans out the porta potty on your site, important job? 100%, right? The person who photocopies all those papers at year end, important job? Right, because there's a purpose for those papers, right? So everything has meaning, has merit, has value. How good a job are you doing making sure that that person, flipping that sign, photocopying that paper, doing that task that you've said, what's the worst part of your job that you hate doing? I'm just curious. And they tell you? How good a job are you doing connecting that to the bigger why? There's this really cool interview when a news reporter was interviewing people who at NASA who were part of putting a man on the moon. And this interviewer was meeting with all the engineers, he was meeting with the astronauts, he was meeting with the people who were sewing the suits and talking to them about how integral their role was in making sure all this happened so that they could put a man on the moon. And there's this neat little clip where as he was running from one interview to the next, he passed a custodian in the office hallways with his cart. And he quickly stopped him with his microphone. He said, "And what do you do here?" And the custodian said, "I'm putting a man on the moon." Right? So maybe your takeaway today is to think about somebody on your team, especially if you have somebody underperforming, if you have somebody not motivated, if you have somebody that you're frustrated about, and you think and ask yourself, how well have I connected what they do to purpose? Because if I connect them to purpose, what am I basically telling that person? You're important. What you do adds value. What you do is important to this job, to our team, to our department. Okay? And if you do this assignment and you realize you do assign a task that does not contribute to the bigger purpose, get rid of it. Right? That's your test of efficiency right there. Okay? This isn't easy, right? When we're managing, leading, we're dealing with lots of different people, different styles, different communications, different expectations. It's hard, right? And it automatically is going to create tension and frustration between you and others, right? We typically avoid or minimize interactions with people who are different from us, right? But as a leader, you can't afford to do that. You actually want a more diverse team because that brings a diversity in ideas and creativity, which then meet your goals of production and efficiency and quality, right? So as the leader, you have to go first, just like trust. Right? You have to cultivate these relationships. You have to build this trust with the people. Right? You have to start these conversations. Most times they're not going to start it or initiate it with you. Okay? A good leader might be okay with that. A great leader is not okay with that. A great leader makes that effort. So with that, I just want to kind of leave you with the fact that this really isn't about fixing your leadership, making you a good leader. This is really around just moving that notch on the scale 1 point. Right? So whatever number you gave yourself on my really fancy scale of 1 to 10, right? Was there anything today that you could apply tomorrow? That's how immediate, right? Tomorrow that you could do that would move it just half a notch on that scale. Ask for feedback. Dig a little bit deeper in trust. Self-assess. Validate some of that. Play the redo game today after the conference. If I got to go to that conference again, what would I do different? What did I get out of it? What was, like these practices, these things that we call leadership habits, start to build us into that exceptional leader. So with that being said, I want you to just kind of take a minute right now to think about what am I going to do to make sure that this 45 minutes wasn't a waste of my time, that something I got from here, is it that I'm going to share it with somebody who wasn't here today and just tell them what I heard about? Is it that I'm actually going to apply one of these things, right? Whatever resonated with you, stuck with you, what are you going to do with that information? Okay? By the way, that's my tip on everything you do. Every meeting you go to, every conversation you have, set an intention, what do I want to get out of this? And then assess after, did I get what I wanted? Or what did I get from it? Okay? That practice, that habit, starts to push your leadership to a different level. Okay? So that's what I had planned for you today. Please stop by before you go and let me know what resonated with you. Would love to connect with you. I'm on LinkedIn. I post lots of leadership thoughts and coaching questions to just kind of help in this area of giving you an opportunity to kind of think on some of these topics. So if that interests you in terms of your own growth and development and you're on LinkedIn or Instagram or whatnot, please feel free to connect with me. Would love to chat with you, and I'll turn it back over to Eli. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you very much, Jenny. This was amazing. I hope everybody enjoyed it. We do have a little gift. Please accept this gift on behalf of Balai and OCA.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so